From LinkedIn News, I'm Leah Smart, host of Everyday Better, an award-winning podcast dedicated to personal development. Join me every week for captivating stories and research to find more fulfillment in your work and personal life. Listen to Everyday Better on the LinkedIn Podcast Network, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
The HP AI PC breaks language barriers instantly by translating up to 44 languages in real time, powered by the Intel Core Ultra processor. With the right tools, work doesn't have to feel like work. Learn more at hp.com/AI PC.
Hey, I'm Kwame Christian, and you are about to step into the world of Negotiate Anything, the #1 negotiation podcast in the world where we teach you how to make difficult conversations easier while getting more of what you want in the process. Each episode is packed with practical tips and strategies from the experts. We delve into negotiation, conflict resolution, and leadership skills that are crucial in both business and in life. Whether you're closing a deal, managing a team, or navigating personal relationships, Negotiate Anything provides you with the tools you need to succeed. Our conversations are real, relatable, and most importantly, rooted in practicality. So if you're ready to transform your conversations and elevate your negotiation skills, join me on Negotiate Anything. Subscribe and listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you love to listen. Let's make every conversation a winning negotiation.
We tried to do some 4 weeks ago. We talked about the Black Swan theory. It's quite famously known from that beautiful book I also read. And then something related to that theory at least. And then we tried to uncover those unknowns, which is cool. And when we talk about integrative cases, we have an integrative case. When we talk about culture difference, we try to simulate a culture difference. So we really are trying and building and creating cases that fit the things we teach, because then we can at least learn proactively.
Kevin, thanks for joining us today.
Hi, my pleasure to be here.
Yes, it's our pleasure to have you, my friend. So how would you get us started by telling us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
So my name is Kevin Tuinte. I'm from the Netherlands, from Enschede to be precise. I study mechanical engineering at the University of Twente. And in my free time, I like to do negotiations. I'm actually quite professional. And I'm part of the Negotiation Project Twente. And what we do is that we teach students and young professionals how to negotiate, how to have better soft skills, and how to focus a bit more on the human side of engineering, because we really think that there's a big gap between what the university teaches and what the work people want from us. So since 2018, we have been busy teaching student negotiations.
Amazing. Okay, now listeners, my friend Kevin is very humble, so I'm going to gas him up for a bit. So this is incredible. So Kevin is a student, and he reached out because of the incredible work that he's doing with the Negotiation Project Twente. For me, it's just really inspiring to see students from all around the world starting to develop this love and knowledge of negotiation. And one of the things that makes you even more special, Kevin, is the fact that you're doing this coming from an academic background where negotiation is not really synonymous with that topic, right? So we see it in business, we see it in law, but what was it about negotiation that drew you to it coming from your background as an engineer?
Well, personally, I've always been intrigued by the soft skills and the human side of engineering. And I also did honors programs. I did all those sort of things, but I was still missing like the development of have a roadmap of negotiations. And personally, and I think that's personally in a group, we think that negotiations is not one soft skill. It's a set of soft skills that you can apply in all types of situations. I was just scrolling to the association list of our university, and then I saw Negotiation Project Twente, and I decided to apply as a member but also as a board. So now I'm doing both. So that's quite cool.
That's amazing. Yeah, and you're absolutely right too, because there is oftentimes, especially when you come from hard science, there's an underappreciation of the soft skills that are required to make that work. I remember one time, as one of my clients is NASA, and when they reached out, I was like, "What am I going to teach you all?" Like, what could I possibly have to offer? But they're having tough conversations too. Thankfully, they weren't asking me to come there and do math, but everybody, just as humans, we all struggle with these tough conversations. And I love the way that you described it too, because a lot of times we think about negotiation as just one skill, but negotiation is just a combination of skills utilized at the right time. And even before you get into named strategies or named tactics, if you are just able to connect with a person, make good reads, understand yourself, understand them, then you can use the skills and organically in the moment and use the right skill at the right time, even if it is not labeled as a traditional negotiation skill. So I love the fact that you're breaking down the negotiation term, the umbrella term, but also recognizing the soft skills and the fact that it's applied in all sorts of difficult conversations and just social situations. And so for the listeners, I want you to break down from your experience, not only as a student, but also learning engineering and somebody who's transitioning into the field. When you think about some of the soft skills that are part of negotiation, where does that show up in the professional world for you?
I think for me, when having a conversation, for example, and just really listening, like, hey, we all hear the words, but what do you really mean by certain words? And also asking good questions. That's quite hard to do, and even if you practice it a lot, it's sometimes just easier to ask a yes or no question. But I think we, at least at our association, we all know that it's better to have a more open-ended question. And for me, it's also about how we attack like a meeting, for example, like how we tackle a meeting, like, hey, prepare an agenda, make sure everyone is involved, make sure we can, as a group, have a productive meeting. It shows up for me as a presentation skills as well, because you are more comfortable with public speaking, or at least with speaking, because one of the things we practice at our association is also doing a simulation case where you really listen to each other. So there's like a platform where you can practice speaking, public speaking, to a group of students, which is actually amazing.
Yes, and this is a perfect segue to the concept of practice in negotiation, because that's really the main thing that brought you here, because you have a message that I think is really important for our listeners, because a lot of times we turn negotiation into this theoretical or philosophical exercise where we say, okay, these are the principles that I follow. This is what I would do hypothetically in a situation that I'm not currently in right now. And we don't have the opportunity to practice. And when you think about it, imagine any other sport. Imagine rugby, soccer, or football or American football, whatever the sport is. Could you imagine a coach just saying, hey, everybody, here are the theoretical underpinnings for how to play this sport. Championship is tomorrow. Let's go. It's just not realistic. So let's talk about the practice that you incorporate and the competitions too, because I think that will be new to a lot of the listeners too.
Definitely. So we believe that we are the only program in Europe and maybe in the world that offer the negotiations how we do it. We have weekly sessions during our academic year from 2 to 3 hours, where we have a first hour is theoretical part. So we go over topics like negotiation 101, so the basics, but also strategy, also like very specific theories. So more about Black Swan theory, for example, the Rose of Leary, all those. No, actually, we go quite broad. Today, at this moment, is also like a very nice class about hostage negotiation. So we cover culture negotiations. And after an hour, we also do a negotiation case. Those cases can be, for example, from Harvard. We have some cases from them. There's also the negotiation center. They also offer cases. We also write our own cases. And then you just do a simulation of an hour in groups of 3 to 6 people, and then just practice negotiation and finding out the details you need to know to have a good deal from your side or a good deal from both sides. And at the end of each session, we have judges ready. So our teachers also give feedback personally to everyone, so we can really monitor progress and make sure that people grow in their negotiation skills. So they learn, they apply, they get feedback, and next week we do the whole cycle again. Because we really think that this whole applied approach to negotiation can really work well. At least we think so. So and it's working quite well. For the negotiation competitions, I think we will talk about it a bit more soon. We have won multiple already in the last years, also from a lot of law universities. Well, we are only a small technical university in the Netherlands, so that's quite cool, I think.
Unbelievable. Yeah, it is quite cool. And when you think about it from a scientific perspective, let's look at the outcome. You're winning. So it works. That was our little experiment. We just did it. Congratulations. So this is great, man. I'm just so impressed because first of all, we have the spaced repetition learning. When you think about learning, a lot of times people just cram. It's like, okay, what do I need to do? Let me just absorb as much content as possible. And somebody listening might say, well, yeah, that was in the university. I don't do that anymore. Well, have you ever had a difficult conversation where the night before you're cramming down information? That is what you're doing, right? You're not taking the time to actually develop the skill. And we don't have the opportunity day to day to practice this in a safe environment where we get actual feedback on our performance. Because the thing is, when we are stuck within the echo chamber of our own minds, or maybe if we let other people in, we don't get the exposure to other people's perceptions of us from a neutral perspective, or maybe a perspective that's hostile to us. And we don't fully appreciate the impact that our approach is having on other people. And then it leads us to blame other people for the failure of the conversation, but not really absorbing it for ourselves. So the ability to develop self-awareness through this iterative practice, showing up every single week, and then actually putting your skills to the test, and then having professionals actually rate you, this is incredible. And the results speak for themselves.
Yeah, definitely, and it's so much fun that all the students that are doing this are there on voluntarily basis, so they don't get paid for it. They don't get they only gain the soft skills, and it's incredible for us as well to see a group of 20 to 30 students from all types of backgrounds and all types of nationalities come each week to help themselves, or at least further develop themselves. So that's
Amazing.
cool.
That's great. And one little note, we should chat afterwards because I hear you learning some great methodologies. I'll give you some of our own stuff too. So you could learn the ANI way as well. Because I think we could add something. And I know you're already listening to the podcast, so it'll be cool to get over there, some of the information over there too. And I want you to give the audience a behind the scenes peek on what these practice sessions look like, and then we can talk about the competitions too, because if you've never done one, it doesn't really make sense and people wouldn't really understand the mechanics. So let's talk about what those practice sessions look like in action, and then we'll transition to the competitions.
Definitely. So with the practice session at our association, what we do is we select a case study about anything really. It can be about selling a carpet at a flea market, but it can also be about business to business negotiations with 14 variables. So you talk about delivery time, you talk about price, you talk about maintenance, you talk about all those related things. With the more complex cases, we get the case a couple days in advance. So as a team, you can prepare for half an hour to an hour to really understand the case. Then during the lecture, we actually start negotiating or start the negotiation. And what we do with that is actually setting an agenda and making sure we understand setting the rules of the game, which we also think is quite important, especially when we have multiple cultures, because we also see that culture does play a big impact on the way we negotiate. I'm quite Dutch. I'm quite direct. I also know some people that are less direct, and so you have to navigate that as well when having the strategy and when setting the rules of the game. Then we negotiate for an hour, see if we can make a deal, see if we can improve upon that deal. So see if we can do like post settlement and see if we can make it better. Then we sometimes record the deal as well to make sure that it's just finalized. And then afterwards, we get evaluated by our teachers, or at least our teachers. So it's quite cool, I think, and it's nice concept, and you get all the aspects of negotiation except for the implementation. So that's cool.
That's brilliant. And so when every week you're learning a different approach to negotiation. So then I'm assuming then in the practice session, you get an opportunity to practice those specific skills under those specific circumstances.
Definitely. That's what we try to do. 4 weeks ago, we talked about the Black Swan theory. It's quite famously known from that beautiful book I also read, and then something related to that theory at least, and then we try to uncover those unknowns, which is cool. And when we talk about integrative cases, we have an integrative case. When we talk about culture difference, we try to simulate a culture difference. So we really are trying and building and creating cases that fit the things we teach, because then we can at least learn proactively.
Yes, no, for sure. And one of the things that I love the most, besides the fact that we're learning different methodologies, you get an opportunity to practice those methodologies in realistic circumstances and you get feedback, but you're also intentionally considering culture. And I feel like that is one of the filters that's a lot more tangible and salient when you're in Europe as well, because you travel 2 hours, you're in a different country, you travel 3 hours, you span 3 countries, with different cultures, different languages and everything like that. And so there's it's more relevant to you all. But I think a lot of folks who are, for example, live in the United States, we don't recognize the different ways that culture impacts us, because we always think about big C culture. So like ethnicity, nationality, geography, those big obvious examples of culture. But then because we're not practicing thinking through a cultural lens, we don't appreciate little C culture, which is just the way that we do things. So for instance, in a company, there are different cultures. State to state, there's a different culture. There's a different cadence of speech. If you go to New York versus Mississippi, then those are very different cultures, right? And so I really appreciate the fact that that you and your team, you're leading with that and helping people to become a lot savvier and more aware of the cultural dynamics, and not think of it as a bad thing that we need to necessarily overcome, but just an important factor that we need to incorporate into our strategic approach.
Definitely, and we are quite lucky that the University of Twente is quite an international university. So for us, it's quite easy to find a lot of international people, because within our group there are like 3 or 4 Dutch people and 20 other nationalities.
Wow.
And even within Europe, we have quite some nice ties with some people from Germany, from Greece, from Spain, from Poland. So we also actively try to negotiate with them via Teams in that case. So it's fine. But then you also see culture in act. And that's something we really trying to build up a bit more, like in Europe and maybe in the world, just have a platform to negotiate with other people and learn cultures and apply negotiation skills or culture skills or just people skills.
Absolutely. So, Kevin, I want to get an idea. I want you to make this really real to the audience too, because I want you to describe yourself before joining the negotiation project versus where you are now. And what are the differences that have come about from going through this process?
I think for me personally, I've been a bit more calm. Like before, I have been a bit ignorant. I think at the beginning, like it doesn't matter who you are, what you do, I will treat everyone the same, and that's a bit like I thought it was like a good way of thinking about it, but I've just learned way more the last months, or a year as well, and it's more like sometimes it's okay to tailor to the need of others. So in that case, that's for culture a great example, and with also proactively, I think for myself, I'm a bit less scared of talking to people. I've never been scared to talk to people, but sometimes I got like really big nerves when having an important meeting. And now I'm just like, okay, it's just another meeting. I can do this. I've done this 100 times before. And if that person is getting angry, then that's fine. I can also navigate that now. If they are disappointed, that's also fine. Like I really can navigate my own emotions better, but really the people emotions from other people way better than before, which is really the power of negotiations, I think, as well. So that's nice and amazing. For me, it's also easy to just say what I've learned, because I'm so self-aware about the things I've done the last month. So that's really, really cool.
That's amazing. So, okay, so we have calmer under pressure, and then we have you're more willing to tailor your message to the person because you're taking the time to understand them. This is such an important point, because I remember one time I was asking myself, what is respect? And I wanted to like get a really good answer. The dictionary answer was not very good to me. And I was like, that doesn't hit it, you know? So I spent literally over a year trying to figure this out. Then I saw this quote from Crucial Conversations, and they said, respect is, and I'm going to butcher this quote, but in general, they're like, respect is, it's something that's very hard to describe, but once it's gone, it's all you can think about. And at that point, the conversation isn't about the topic at hand. It's all about reclaiming the dignity that you feel that you lost. And what's interesting is that the way that I would respect you is going to be different from the way I respect the person listening to the podcast, not because I respect one of you more or less, but because whether or not a person feels respected is completely determined by them. And so I need to understand who that person is, where they come from, what they care about in order to respect them in a specific way. And what's interesting is that sometimes, depending on the person and the circumstance, what is very respectful for one person could be incredibly disrespectful to another person, right? And sometimes we find out the hard way, you know? So I remember one time, here's an example. So for me, my family's from the Caribbean, so I'm a child of immigrants. And so every once in a while, even though this is me speaking my American English, sometimes I get excited and the Caribbean accent can sneak in. And so when people say, hey, where are you from? I get excited. I'm like, oh my gosh, I still have it. Well, my dad's from Dominica, my mom's from Guyana, blah, blah, blah. And I go into it. It's fun for me to share my culture. And then I remember one time there was a woman who had an accent and I was like, oh, where are you from? And she got really offended. She didn't like that I was asking, and I realized, oh, okay, you need to feel things out a little bit more. But it's just a simple example of how respect for one person is different from a respect from another person. And then coming back to your journey here, because when I'm thinking about the fact that you're more calmer in these conversations, you feel less stressed, you're more okay with people's responses to what it is that you're asking for. How long did it take you to begin to feel more confident and more skilled? When did you start to feel like the initial flickers of, oh, I'm better at this now?
Oh, that's a hard question. I would say like the last 6 to 8 weeks ago, I had some meetings I didn't like those types of meetings. It doesn't matter what type of meeting, I really didn't like them. And then like when I looked back, like I reflect on myself, I was like, well, I actually was quite calm and I actually was okay having that meeting. I didn't have the nerves during the meeting anymore, which before I know I had. So I don't think I noticed it like before the meeting, but like when I look back at it. And since then I was like, okay, I think I have gained the confidence or the skill set to do it. And since that moment, like I would say maybe 6 weeks ago, I was like, okay, now it's there, like at least a lot of tough conversations. Let's just try to have them. And sometimes it's not going to be fun or pretty, but that's just how it is. And let's navigate it. So
Yeah. That's great. Okay, so you started to recognize it 6 to 8 weeks ago. And then at that point, how long before that was it that you started? Was that like a couple months in or like 3 months in or like a week or so? What was it like?
Let's see. Oh, that was 20 weeks, so 4 months, I think. 4 or 5 months. Yeah. I think I would have noticed it a little bit earlier, maybe, but I sometimes you just don't have the hard meetings. You don't look forward to. And I noticed. I know by myself that it was something I didn't really enjoy doing. But I look back and I was like, okay, it's fine now. It's okay. It's yeah. Yeah, it might have been earlier if I had the hard meeting earlier or the tough conversation earlier. But yeah, that moment of realization and self-awareness again was 6-8 weeks ago. I'm not entirely sure, but yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, because I wanted to know, because I know a lot of times people are saying, okay, well, I want to do this. I want to get better at this. And then they go and they learn something and they try it. It doesn't work. And they're like, hey, this Negotiate Anything podcast doesn't work. Nobody said that, but those are the fake nightmares that I have. It's like people think that they could just immediately get better. And you can start to see results when you say, okay, well, just simply saying, all right, in the next difficult conversation I have, I'm going to ask more open-ended questions and focus on listening. That would have a result. But what I love about what you said is that it didn't feel like you were, when Spider-Man got bit by the spider and then you start to like radiate or whatever. It's not one of those moments. It's that you have a conversation and it's no longer as big a deal as it used to be. Like you still might feel nerves, but you don't feel concerned that you don't have what it takes to get the job done. And it is just a quiet confidence that you can carry with you in these conversations. And based on the people that I've worked with and other folks I've seen on this journey, and then my own personal journey, because I used to be a people pleaser, is that you start to get better very quickly. And then it's almost like you feel changed, like you're a different person, and it's really, really powerful. So let's talk about the competitions too, like when you're out actually representing the school, because it's one thing to talk about the weekly sessions. It's a completely different thing to say, okay, now there's pressure because now you're representing the school. Can you talk about where that pressure comes from, how it feels, and then what a competition looks like?
Definitely. So I will start with the pressure. The pressure comes from the fact that we have qualified. For us, there are like two big negotiation competitions in Europe, or at least around Europe. That's the Warsaw Negotiation Round and the Negotiation Challenge. There are some other smaller ones, but yeah, that's We see that there is going to be more events in the future. So we are already trying to navigate that and also apply for those. Part of the pressure comes from the fact that we have qualified since we started each year, and we have won couple of them, but like we only exist since 2018. But I think we have 4 or 5 titles on our name, so that's quite nice, and we quite know what we're doing at least. And that's also we get also recognized from other universities that we are, so to speak, the University of the Great Negotiators. That's a nice title to have. And I think another part of the session of the pressure is really wanting to perform and really wanting to travel, and also wanting to show your skills on the highest level possible, or at least we think what the highest level possible is right now. So, and most competitions have like an online qualifying round, because there are like 60 or 70 teams that want to compete in the competitions, but only 16 can go to the finals. So then you have 3 qualifying rounds online, and the success of your negotiation is measured on 2 things mostly. That's the relationship you have with the other party, that is filled in via a standardized test. And the other part is the deal you've got and how good it is compared to other parties that are on the same side of the negotiation case. And apparently, we as a team did quite well for both competitions, because we qualified for both. So we go to Cape Town in 3 weeks. So in April, we go to promote University of Twente again at the negotiation challenge. And a week afterwards, we go to the Warsaw negotiation round. And that's in Warsaw, Poland. And at the competition itself, it's a little bit more complex. So you also have a case, you also prepare for that case, then you negotiate, then you have still the outcome of your deal, then you still have your relationship with the other party. But there's also judges present that are going to evaluate your negotiation style and to see how much they like you, actually. So that's just it. Yeah, I can make it hard or easy, but I think it's just how much they like you as a negotiator. And you do that for like 4 rounds in 2 or 3 days. So it's really exhaustive. Like you just have to be focused for 6 hours a day and then 2 days or 3 days actually. So it's really nice, and it's really nice networking with the amazing teams that are present there as well, and not only promoting Negotiation Project Twente, but also negotiation as a whole, and really promote soft skills for engineers. At least that's our mission a bit, having more engineers with good soft skills.
Hello, my friends. Before we get back to today's episode, I want to ask you a question. Have you ever wondered how to elevate your team's negotiation game and how you can help the folks on your team have better, difficult conversations? At the American Negotiation Institute, we offer transformative keynotes and workshops tailored to empower professionals with top-tier negotiation and conflict resolution skills. Whether it's a keynote for your next event or hands-on training for your team, we've got you covered. Don't just negotiate. Master the art with the American Negotiation Institute. Click the link in the description to find out more. Elevate, negotiate, and succeed.
Hey you, I'm Andrew Seaman. Do you want a new job? Or do you want to move forward in your career? Well, you should listen to my weekly show called Get Hired with Andrew Seaman. We talk about it all, and it's waiting for you, yes you, wherever you get your podcasts.
Introducing the HP AI PC, your powerful AI assistant. Easily search through personal files, gain valuable insights, and make smarter, more informed business decisions. Unlock the future of work today with the HP AI PC, powered by the Intel Core Ultra processor. With the right tools, work doesn't have to feel like work. Learn more at hp.com/AIPC.
Kevin, this is amazing. And I think one of the most eye-opening things that you mentioned just today is the fact that you helped me to realize that my whole life I've been pronouncing Warsaw incorrectly. So now I know how to say it the right way. So thank you for this. And I love this description because you've broken it down exceptionally well. And then you've also helped me to realize that when it comes to the American competitions, there are some things that we can learn from the way that you all are doing it with a more global perspective as well. I like the simplicity of the judging as well, because when we do judging in ours, we judge people on 7 different metrics, which I see the value for sure. But I think a couple of things, sometimes we get lost on the main focus of negotiation, which are the ones that you said. We want to focus on the relationship and the outcome. Like what is the quality of the deal, and then what is the quality of the relationship afterwards. And then sometimes in order to do that, your negotiation skills, as you described at the beginning, it is the series of soft skills that you use at the right time. And so you might get dinged if you're not using like a named negotiation strategy, but you are flowing effectively, building a relationship while getting a good deal. But you might get dinged because the judge doesn't say, well, I don't see this, I didn't see that. So, well, the reality is we might not have needed it. So by simplifying the judging, by focusing on just the relationship and the deal, I think that's really strong. And talk more about how you manage yourself under pressure too, because I think this is a realistic aspect of it, because you're going to be in a situation where you're having multiple days of competition. So you're tired, like most professionals are very tired. You're going to be working really hard and focused for a long time, which creates a little bit of stress, and you don't have as much time as you would have liked to prepare. So how did you put yourself in a mindset where all of those external factors and also the internal emotions weren't having a negative impact on your performance?
I'm going to give credit to my team. I have like an amazing negotiation team. One of the things we are really strong at is the analytical skills. Engineers' analytical skills, yeah, it's a bit a cliche, but fortunately it's the truth. So if you look at preparation, for example, we can really quickly prepare because we can read very fast and really quickly understand the case. And we just have the team to keep the stress levels in check. One of the things that's quite nice while we're doing the practice, for example, is you don't get bothered as much with time pressure, because you're like, okay, yeah, we have 5 more minutes. Okay, that's 5 more minutes. That's fine. And then what we saw with online negotiation rounds was like, okay, we want to wrap up, but then you see some hasty decision making at the other side. And we're like, hey, that's fine for us. Like we already were prepared on doing it, and even before going to the competitions, we planned scenarios, and we have a lot of preparation because we think preparation is quite important for the negotiation, and also to know your team quite well. That's for us is very important, because you have to trust your team. And what we do, I blindly trust my team, or at least my teammates, in making the decision, even if I do not agree at the moment. And and that makes sure that my stress levels are a bit more in check, and also my other team members, because we believe the decision we make, or at least maybe one team member makes at that moment, is for that moment the right decision. And if it's not the right decision, we try to navigate it back so it is going to be the right decision. So trust in your team and preparation is, I think, the 2 most important parts. If you don't have enough time to prepare, fortunately, at least think I can talk quite nicely. So when we start a negotiation, I will just start talking a bit, and then my team members can reread the case again and rewrap their heads around it, and then they are well prepared, and I'm just sitting there with, okay, I hope you guys prepared now. I hope you're ready, and then it's going to be fine. We have never had a catastrophic failure because we didn't have our stress levels in check.
Amazing. And there's one thing that I want to pull out before we wrap up, because I could just keep talking to you about this forever, is the fact that you said, even if we don't make the right decision, we go about navigating the conversation to make that the right decision. This is so big because so many people are afraid of making a mistake in negotiation. And I said, well, let me tell you something. You will certainly make a mistake in this. It's not possible to be perfect. It's just not possible. And so your job is to be able to recover. So can you talk a little bit more about that process? What does it look like, and how do you recover in the moment?
Definitely. So sometimes, like we've had in the past before, that I've made a mistake. I know it was my mistake. So what we did at that moment is we talked for a bit with the other party as well, and then we said, hey, let's just take a 2 or 3 minute break, because we noticed like it was a bit tensed, and then we're like, okay, let's take a break now, let's catch our breaths again, let's talk about it, and then come back to the table refreshed. Because you can do that. We can with the competitions as well, we can take breaks as much as we'd like, as long as we have a deal at the end. And I think what I saw with in the qualifiers as well is that people are a bit afraid to take a break, because I don't know, for us it's just a moment to breathe and navigate those challenges or those mistakes or those faults we've made, and just reflect a bit back on, hey, what has been said, and how do we fix this, or how do we navigate this? So
Yes. Oh, you're spot on. I think that's great. And for me, just thinking, but like putting my professor hat on for a moment, I think that that's really admirable too, because a lot of times people are afraid to take breaks. So, for example, one of the things that I do, obviously with A&I, we do consulting with big companies, negotiation trainings, but I still teach at the law school. So Ohio State's Moritz College of Law is actually the #1 dispute resolution program in the country. The students are just incredible, and my colleagues on faculty are amazing. And one thing that I've noticed a lot of times is that students really struggle when it comes to taking breaks. And I'm just sitting here looking and I'm saying, hey, this is getting off the rails, which is fine. I mean, that happens in negotiations, but you need to be aware of it and then have the humility to be willing to put it back on track. Because a lot of times what ends up happening when I ask students, hey, why didn't you call a caucus? They're like, oh, I thought I could potentially make it through. I didn't want to take a break because I didn't want to look weak or unprepared. And then I just say, hey, well, listen, I can appreciate that concern, but the consequences of not taking a break were significant, right? And so you have to kind of pick your poison to a certain extent. And the thing is, I've never been in or observed like a real negotiation or mock negotiation where I said, man, they took too many breaks. It's always either they took the right amount or should have taken some and they never did, So it just reminds me of when my dad was teaching me how to drive, and he taught me you will make far more mistakes by driving too fast than by driving too slow. And taking a break just helps to control the pace of the conversation and just make sure you're on track. And if/when you make a mistake, you can take a break to regroup and get back on track too. So it's a really profound point. It sounds very simple, but it is that fear that holds us back, that fear of the perception of other people that prevents us from utilizing one of the most powerful and simple but scariest tools at our tool belt, which is just simply taking a break.
Yeah, I totally agree. And like, we take inspiration by all the authors in the field. So this is actually just going to the balcony. Yeah. So just, and what we as a project do is we grab our knowledge from different sources. Like, we do not say, hey, this is the holy Bible of negotiations. In my bookcase here, I have like 10 or 15 books about negotiations. There are way more than that, but it's just about the different perspectives on an issue, and the metaphor going to the balcony. It's just amazing. Like, just take a break, take a step back, and see really what's going on. And that's just like, for example, that specific theory, or just that take a break, is going to be one of the lectures.
Yes. Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it's yeah. So that's nice.
I love it. Kevin, this has been fantastic. Before you go, I want to give you an opportunity to shout out the program, and then also let people know how they can get in touch, and give them one tip, like your best negotiation tip that they could use to put into practice today to make a difficult conversation easier.
First, my how to get back, I want to thank the Negotiation Project Twente. We are a student-led non-profit association, and we really love to work with all types of people about negotiations. I really want to bring negotiations to the next level in the Netherlands, at Enschede, the Netherlands, Europe, and the world. So if you want to contact us, you can go to contact me via LinkedIn, just Kevin Tuinte. You can go to our website, the Negotiation Project Twente, and just shoot me a message, and we can see what we can arrange. I really love to collaborate with as much people as possible. And for the tip, I would say, taking the breaks is actually one of the deal breakers for me. Like, just taking a step back, especially like it's nice when you're practicing to just reflect a bit on what happened, and then go into the tough conversation again. And don't be afraid to take a break, because most people do not really mind, at least in my experience. So that's it.
This is great, Kevin. Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you for reaching out. And thanks for the work that you're doing at the university. It is so important. And you are touching more lives than you realize. So kudos, my friend.
Thank you.
Amazing. Ooh, you crushed that. You crushed that. And now after this, about 10,000 or so more people will know about you and the pod and your group and everything you're doing, which is pretty cool, man.
Yeah, definitely. Like when I talked to my board about this, they were also like, okay, that's just insane that you sent an email to them and that they also replied to it. I'm like, okay, let's just do it, Like I was like, I'm not going to back down now. I just really want to do this, and they are actually quite happy and excited as well for this
That's amazing.
interaction. So
Hell yeah.
yeah.
This is and it shows like make bold moves. The reality is when you think about what it takes to make a safe move and versus a bold move, the difference is just emotion. Because like this wasn't particularly challenging in terms of work. Like it was probably easier for you to do like one of the practice sessions weekly, but it was hard to send that first email. But then if you start to get in the habit of just taking bold actions, then that becomes your norm. Because when it comes to executing like a simple safe decision versus a big bold decision, the amount of effort is usually pretty much the same, but the effects and impacts are significantly different.
Definitely, and what I like, I always think the worst case scenario is that they say no. Okay, yeah, and so this year we also collaborate with Mark Davis, for example, and I think you also know Kelt Jensen. Yeah, we also talked to him, and yeah, we just really love to get the great minds of negotiation and culture to Twente and to and just share our knowledge and gain more knowledge. So it's just all about making those bold moves, and sometimes they pay off. Most of the time, they pay off at least.
Yes. No, man, this is cool. And let me know because you'll see the roster of the folks who are on the pod. So if you see anybody else you want to connect with, let me know and I could try to make that happen too.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, that's cool.
Well, I don't want to step on Simone's parade here because I know Simone always has amazing follow-up questions. So what you coming up with?
Oh, I have two questions, but I want to start with the question about breaks because I was really surprised by that. That's really interesting. And there was a moment in history, 1993, in the negotiation in Oslo. There was Israel and Palestine were negotiating. So they got to an agreement in Oslo in 1993. At the same time, they were negotiating in Washington, but they didn't get to an agreement in Washington. Same parties, same problem, but different contexts. So I was reading a book called The Process by Uri Savir. He was one of the negotiators on Israel's side. And he said that one of the differences is that in Washington, all the breaks were scheduled. So they couldn't take breaks whenever they wanted. Whereas in Oslo, one of the PLO or Palestine, this guy always said, hey, I need to call and see what my leader wants to do regarding this problem. And he was not calling. He was actually taking breaks, but he didn't say anything. So the amount of breaks that they were taking in Oslo was huge. They were taking too many breaks, and that changed, according to Uri Savir, that changed the negotiation. It's been one of the only agreements that have been signed by Palestine and Israel.
Wow. That's so good. How do you know this stuff? I tell you, listen, Kevin, Simone is like a negotiation savant. Just like I've never heard that story. That's so cool. But I mean, it just shows like the power of the pause. And so we talk so much about silence and negotiation. And then we talk about, hey, when you get upset, take a couple deep breaths before responding. But I think about a break as just silence extended. Sometimes I take a few seconds. Sometimes it might be taking a break for a few minutes. Sometimes it might be taking a break and let's come back later today or tomorrow. Sometimes it could be just like, that was absurd. I'm taking a break until you come back to the table with an apology, And if we just expand our perspective on what a break could be, now we have so much more to play with, because they serve a lot of times the same purpose. Like I don't want to respond really quickly when I'm very emotional because I might say something that feels good in the moment that I'll regret once I calm down. And then I can come back with a better strategy as well if I just slow down for a few seconds. And the same thing works but just extended over a longer period of time, whether it's like a 10-minute break, a couple days, a couple weeks. But this is so cool to see such a high stakes example with a conflict that has been happening for centuries because they never agree on anything.
Oh yeah, I also want to say, like, I have one example from one of my friends who did the negotiation challenge last year, and they just had an sort of impasse during the negotiation. Then they took an informal break, so they just went to get some lunch or just have a talk. And then the minute they started negotiating again, they sealed the deal. because they were just taking a break and they were just, they trusted each other a bit more and everything cooled down a bit. And then and it helped them qualify to the finals as well. So that's cool.
That's cool.
And you know what I feel is particularly when I take breaks in negotiation, I associate taking a break with not solving the problem. And that's why it's difficult. Because if I say, okay, let's take a break, it's like, okay, I'm just pushing back the problem and I don't want to face that. So how can I don't know, because that's a feeling, you know? I'm not aware of my emotions at that moment because I am in an emotional state. So I say, sometimes I've thought, okay, let's go to break. But then I said, no, I need to solve this problem now. And that's the mistake. What can I do at this very golden second to say, hey, no, now I have to pause?
You want to take first shot, Kevin?
Yeah, like for me, like I'm lucky enough to have the platform I'm currently in, so I can practice taking those breaks. I think that's the easiest answer, but the hardest to implement, because you like we negotiate every week, have a negotiation, we take 2, 3, 4 breaks each negotiation. So we really practice with saying, hey, I need a minute now. Otherwise, I would say or suggest like with the same attitude, like saying, hey, worst case scenario is that they say no. And then you still have had some time between you asking and them giving the question to calm yourself down a bit.
Mm-hmm. I like that. And to add to it, one thing that I realize is that I have to become very familiar with myself. There are some patterns that everybody has, whether it's personality, whether it's nature or nurture. I think it's more important to just understand where you sit. And so for me, I think about the fact that there are some times I have very predictable, but not always helpful or accurate emotional responses to situations. So in situations where, let's say, somebody's being really aggressive, sometimes my natural response, the people pleaser in the past, would have been like, okay, I'm going to roll over. I'm going to let this happen and, hope for the best in the future. I don't want to cause any ruckus. So when things get tough in a negotiation and I start to feel, okay, just let them have it, I'm more skeptical of that, because that's my biased response. I need to have a bit of a more evolved response. If somebody's natural response is more aggressive and they're like, oh, that person said something dumb, I need to hurt their feelings right now, then they realize that's their natural response. They need to be more skeptical of that, right? And so for you, Simone, in this situation, what I think is, okay, if I'm associating with this taking a break with like almost a failure of sorts, one of the things that could help is reframing what that is by your own definition. And so you can think of yourself not as a negotiator in that moment, but almost like a chef trying to whip up a good deal. And sometimes the ingredients will be negotiation skills, but sometimes when you're baking, the secret ingredient is time. If I'm baking a cake and I want to do it in 5 minutes, I've got some problems. Give me the best batter in the world and it still does not work. So once you realize that, oh no, I am a high level negotiator and I recognize that sometimes with these tough deals, the ingredient I need is the right amount of time, and I trust myself to determine what that right amount of time is, then you can feel more okay with that. And then, Kevin, to your point, sometimes people are so emotional. Usually it's emotion when somebody says, no, you cannot take a break, because that is absurd, right? Unless the person's using it as like a stall tactic and you're starting to catch on, right? But in a lot of cases, like, I just need to gather myself. I just need to think it through. I need to talk to people who have decision-making authority, whatever it is. There are a lot of legitimate reasons to take a break. But if somebody's like, no, we need to finish this right now, what I say is this, because I'm still taking my break and I will allow you to get whatever it is out of your system, but I'm taking my break. And so what I'd say is, hey, it sounds like there's something else that you want to say. So if you want to say that, I want to pay you the respect of listening. And so I'll listen and I'll reflect back my understanding to make sure that I got it right. But as far as adding more to this discussion, I don't feel comfortable adding more until I have some time to think, right? And so then you let them, essentially it's kind of like in a fight, you can let the person punch themselves out where they have no more energy. So I'll say, great, I'm going to rely on my listening skills and empathy, and I'm going to empathize, and I'm not going to add anything other than sharing my understanding. And then they feel more comfortable giving a break. So it's not a question of whether or not I take a break. It'll happen, but it's either now or I'll give you like 2 or 3 more minutes.
Wow.
Congratulations! You've just joined an elite club. By listening to a full episode, you're now officially on the Negotiate Anything team. So welcome aboard. What most team members do is they subscribe to the podcast because that allows them to automatically get the latest episodes of the show. The best things in life lie on the other side of difficult conversations. Keep learning, keep practicing, and keep getting better. Your relationships will improve, your career will soar, and you'll have the confidence you need to get the most out of these crucial conversations. Again, thank you for joining the team. We're excited to have you, and I will see you in the next episode. I'll catch you later.